The night was cold and rainy when I decided to reactivate my dating app profile. Despite past experiences, I still held on to hope of finding someone special. I came across an intriguing profile on Bumble named Daniel. His photos portrayed a handsome, smiling man. Our initial conversations were lively and relaxed, and soon we arranged to meet. On that sunny spring day, we met at a bustling city cafe. Daniel was charming and charismatic, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. He mentioned being a company representative and traveling frequently throughout the southern part of the country. As we got to know each other, Daniel seemed increasingly interested in details about my life. He mentioned knowing where I worked, which made me a bit uneasy, but I tried to ignore the warning signs. He insisted on stopping by my workplace for a visit, but I politely declined, suggesting a meeting in a public place instead. In the days that followed, Daniel's messages became more frequent and invasive. He always seemed one step ahead, as if he knew more than I had shared. One day, while I was at work, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Daniel. He said he was nearby and wanted to drop by. My heart started racing. How did he know where I was? I politely refused, but he persisted. He mentioned details about the building where I worked, making it clear he knew exactly where to find me. It started to deeply unsettle me. I decided to act cautiously and keep my personal information more guarded. One quiet Friday afternoon, as I was finishing up work, something strange happened. Instinctively, I decided to check Daniel's profile, and to my horror, his location was visible. He was nearby. Without wasting time, I locked up the showroom and hid in a dark corner, trying to contain the growing fear inside me. The silence was deafening, interrupted only by the sound of rain outside and the pounding of my heart. Soon after, I heard the sound of tires on concrete approaching slowly. My heart leaped into my throat when I recognized the noise. It was Daniel's car. With a lump in my throat, I watched through the window as he stepped out of the vehicle. He looked different from the confident, charming man I had met. He was disheveled, with holes in his shoes, and a sinister expression on his face. I confronted him, demanding to know why he was there. Daniel laughed confidently, admitting he had used Bumble to find out where I worked. My blood ran cold as I realized he had planned it all. He entered the showroom as if he owned the place, surveying the surroundings. His ominous presence left me feeling powerless. Daniel continued his sinister game, disturbingly commenting on my personal appearance and my reaction to seeing him there. I felt trapped, caught in an increasingly threatening situation. He came too close, ignoring my pleas to keep his distance. Desperate to regain control, I began demonstrating some products from the showroom, trying to maintain a facade of normality while my heart pounded in my chest. Daniel stood only steps away, a disdainful smile on his face. "You're even prettier in person," he said with a piercing gaze that sent shivers down my spine. "And you seem nervous, very nervous." The tension in the air was palpable. Every move I made felt closely monitored by Daniel. He was clearly uninterested in discussing business or anything other than his own presence. Then he made his next move, attempting to touch my arm with a hand that made my skin crawl. I felt increasingly trapped, unsure how to escape from what had turned into a nightmare of a meeting. I decided to act strategically, turning to quickly enter the office under the pretext of getting my phone. That's when Daniel, without warning, delivered a hard slap to my back, causing me to stumble forward. The throbbing pain in my back was replaced by panic when he grabbed my waist, violently pulling me toward him. I felt his hot breath on my face as he tried to force a kiss. Instinctively, without thinking, I summoned all my strength and pushed him firmly, causing him to momentarily recoil. "Get out of here now," I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty room. Daniel, however, seemed amused by my fear and desperation. His smile turned into a defiant look. "You're all worked up, aren't you?" he said, almost as if relishing my discomfort. The situation had gone too far. I was determined to end it and protect myself. Seizing a momentary opening, I stepped back and gathered all my courage. I threatened to call the police, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the trembling in my hands. Daniel laughed again, seemingly unfazed by the idea of being confronted. That's when he approached me again, this time grabbing my neck with a force that left me breathless. It felt like time stood still. My mind raced for an escape, anything that could free me from this horrible situation. My instincts kicked in when, without thinking, I delivered a punch toward Daniel's face. The impact was surprisingly strong. Daniel staggered back, surprised and momentarily stunned. I seized that brief moment of advantage to rush toward the door, locking it behind me with trembling hands. From inside the office, I heard Daniel shouting and pounding forcefully on the door. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt deafening. I called my brother, who insisted I immediately call the police. Terrified, I finally made the call. I quickly explained the situation while monitoring Daniel's location on the app, watching him slowly retreat from the building. However, my relief was short-lived. Later on, I realized he was returning to the area. Fear took hold of me as I saw his location approaching dangerously close. The rest of the night was an endless agony, with me hiding in the office, locked and desperately waiting for help. The police eventually arrived and took note of everything that had happened, but Daniel had disappeared. Nevertheless, that traumatic experience left deep scars on me. Since then, I have avoided sharing personal details online and have doubled down on precautions for my safety. Dating has lost its sparkle, replaced by constant fear that Daniel could reappear. For a while, I was immersed in loneliness. The monotonous routine of everyday life felt like an endless void until, on impulse, I decided to create a Tinder account. I didn't have high expectations, just filling in some basic details and adding a recent photo. It was merely a pastime to occupy my restless mind. I worked at a small store in the city center, trying to keep busy and ward off turbulent thoughts. My severe ADHD made it difficult to stay focused, but I was determined to push forward, even if everything seemed blurry. One ordinary evening, I received an unexpected message on Instagram from a strange man asking if I had a boyfriend. My responses were brief and indifferent, as I was exhausted and just wanted to sleep. However, something changed the next morning. As I walked towards work, I noticed a black car passing by me repeatedly, its dark windows concealing any glimpse of the interior. A sense of unease washed over me, hastening my steps toward the shop. The day proceeded without incident, until a strange man entered the store and stared at me for an uncomfortable amount of time. His eyes seemed to pierce my soul, leaving me unsettled and disconcerted. On the way back home, I spotted the same black car again, closely following me. My heart raced as I quickly entered a neighbor's yard to hide. The stranger had turned me into his prey. I was rescued by a kind neighbor who offered me a ride home. I thanked them with relief, but my torment was far from over. That night, he showed up at my doorstep, claiming to have found my address on Tinder. A shiver of horror ran through me as I realized my personal information was being used against me. I demanded that he leave and not come back, but his messages persisted, flooding my phone with insistence and invitations. Months passed, and he continued to haunt both my virtual and real life. His obsessive behavior kept me in a constant state of alert. He didn't understand my boundaries, ignoring my desire for solitude and peace. One day, in a fit of anger and desperation, I hurled my phone towards his car, hoping to drive him away once and for all. The sound of impact was followed by a disturbing silence as the car sped away. I thought I had liberated myself from my stalker, but the silence was merely an illusion. He continued to watch me, his presence looming like a shadow in my daily routine. Days turned into weeks, and the unsettling interactions became less frequent. It seemed like he had disappeared, but the fear persisted, rooted in my mind like a dark seed. Thank you for watching until here. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. See you soon.